Welcome once again to how to control your negative emotions. And tonight we're going to talk about divorce, the cause and the cure. There's a lot of divorce, you have to admit, 50% of all couples that get married, including those who've been married before, gets a divorce, and it's very serious. And what happens to love? Everybody falls in love, and you think they walk off into the sunset or sunrise, but it's really the sunset, you see. And come a few days later, a few months later, a few years later, they're fighting like cats and dogs. Why is that? I don't see animals in the animal kingdom fighting each other like that. They have their rules and regulations, and they seem to abide by it and live happily ever afterwards if they know what happiness is. But something's wrong with human beings. And the question is then, and I'm really going to open the floor to questioning, so you can stop me anytime you like. But the question is, what's wrong with human beings that they hate each other and destroy each other all the time? Especially men and women. Men beat women up, and I don't think the statistics are out for women beating men up. I don't think men are too embarrassed to bear those statistics, but I'm sure it's quite sizable. What's wrong? What's wrong with love that mostly it turns to tragedy? Perhaps love isn't love at all. Maybe it's some kind of deception. But I shall raise some questions. What do women want out of men? What do men want out of women? I think what men want out of women precludes whatever woman could ever get out of a man. I wonder if you know what I'm talking about when I say that. See, who is to be the central figure, the central authority in the home? Is it the man? Is the center of the home life, the pivot, the center of the universe, if you like? Should he be the patriarch, or should the woman be the matriarch? Should everybody revolve around the woman? May I suggest politely that whenever you see everything revolving around woman, all hell breaks loose. There's something wrong with that relationship. Of course, when men have lost their strength and their authority, for which reason everything starts to revolve around a woman, they try to get this authority back with all the force, the animal force, at their command. And they beat the little woman down and try to get that authority back. But that's not the right way, because, you know, man is not altogether an animal. And when he becomes altogether an animal, it's because he's lost his respectability. That quality in a man that woman can naturally respect. But what is this quality does anybody know what this quality in a man? Does any woman in this audience know what she's looking for in a man? Since I don't see a rush of hands going up, nobody knows what the hell there is they're looking for. I can tell you what women are looking for. I don't think they know it themselves. I think they know it when they see it, but there are a few men who have it, so you have a hope of a snowflake in hell of finding it. And it's loving what's right, standing for that right against all odds, more than they love the woman. Now, most of the time, men love women more than they love what's right. And therefore, they make the woman God. Now, they make the woman the God because they want to be God themselves. Men who love women this way are selfish. And the selfishness comes from falling away or falling out of love with reality. Now, that reality every woman needs, longs for. She needs that man's affinity, his attraction to, his fascination with, honor, what's right, what's fair. And he has to know that without going to school. It must be intuitive, almost like the instinct of an animal, but it must be stronger than that. And it must be the leavening that takes a man beyond being just a mere animal. It's what I call his beyond. And with that, a woman would naturally respond respectfully, because the love of right in her, the love of purpose, after all, she's a helpmate. She's become a playmate, but she's really designed to be a helpmate, to help a man fulfill whatever commands the beyond of man requires of him. Does that make sense to you? Or is I'm just talking to myself? May I see ladies, do you understand what I'm saying? You're looking for a quality in a man, aren't you? That you can naturally respect. For instance, when Jimmy Carter, oh, I hate to say the name even, makes me nervous just to, when that wimp, I can just imagine, Amy's in, is it Amy?
Yes.
Yeah, she was. She was in, who was running that show, don't you? And you see, but when he was in power, I felt like children feel when they have no father, when the wife, the woman is in control. The whole family is out of control, and the spirit of the woman starts to get strong and mean and manipulating and bitchy and witchy. See? And some men, like Jimmy Carter, would surrender to that. Other men would fight like hell trying to get the power back, but then he'd look worse. He wouldn't look good trying to look good. He'd look so bad that the kids would cling to the mother. And the mother would then be the object of respect. The father comes home drunk, beats up the mother, tries to get his control back, but every child would see that the children would see what the mother would see. There wouldn't be anything respectable in that man you could respect. You can't respect a raging beast, a angry, violent, raging bull. The children need a beyond too. They need something to respect. And so therefore, with Jimmy Carter, the type of president in a country, the whole country starts to act like the family. But with Ronald Reagan, at least the good people, the sensible ones, even though he isn't perfect, we all have a better feeling about ourselves, and we all have more patriotism, we all feel more patriotic, and the national spirit is different. Don't you agree? So, because there are liberals who don't like him, and there are certain kinds of women who don't like that kind of man, because there's certain kind of women, no matter what, if you had a good man, they'd hate him, and if they'd have a bad man, they'd hate him. See, so it wouldn't make much difference what kind of person you are, they just want to dominate. See, so, yes. Good, I'm glad you and someone, I would have gone on forever otherwise.
Do you find that when in a relationship you really basically have to be anything else but yourself? Do you have to portray an aggressive image to a woman?
No, that's right. Look at me. I'm myself. What you see here is what I get at home. Ask my kids and ask my wife, if you want to. I mean, I'm not any different in television than I am on radio or I am in real life. I'm just me. And I have fun.
But how do you gain respect without seeming like an angry
But
person?
I'm not an angry person.
No, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying a person.
But like I said, I'm not an angry person, neither should you. Mm-hmm. See, the thing is that there is a war going on between the spirit of the woman and the spirit of the man. Now this is maybe a little bit of a difficult pill to swallow, but you have to understand that either man is either a fallen being or he's risen from an ape. See? We're either going into the slime or we came out of the slime. I like to think we're going into the slime if we're not careful. Because if everything was evolutionary, then there would be no doctors needed. We'd need no schools. We would need no marriage counselors or psychologists. There wouldn't be any mental illness or anything like that. Psychological illness. Maybe pathological, psychological, but not otherwise. So you see, everything would be husband and wife, nature being ordered the way it is. There wouldn't be any trouble between men and women. But there is trouble between men and women, and there's been trouble ever since you can remember, and anybody can remember, and it's getting worse. Some error has crept into the human race. See, and so for this reason I say there is a spirit of woman. If you want to trace the origins of this, I have a book called The Adam and Eve Syndrome, which is excellent if you don't have this. But it traces the origin of man, and you can see duplicated in today's relationship between man and woman, the same kind of relationship that Adam and Eve had in the fallen state. The woman has a beyond. That's the serpent, represented by the serpent, ancient dragon, that seduces, gets into the mind of the woman. And then there's the pride of man, needing support for his pride to separate him from reality to be his own reality. But when this man falls, he's dependent on the woman to help him believe that he is not fallen but still rising. See? You remember that commercial? I go to work and I do the bacon and I put it in a pan and I never let him forget he's a man. You remember see that commercial? I stir up the bacon and put it in a pan and never forget he's a man. That's a woman doing this. She works and she's a housewife, and she does her job helping man to feel like a man, so he doesn't feel like he's a monkey. You see what I mean? The truth of the man is that man has an ego, and the spirit of the woman understands the weakness of the man. And as man is selfish man is trying to be something he can never be, God. He's vain, egotistical. He never wants to face the truth about his fallen state. He always wants to be reassured by the spirit of a falsely loving woman. And he calls forth the spirit of the love of the woman. And this is the problem between them. He loses himself he immerses himself in the spirit of love of the woman. And the spirit of the love of the woman, it's not the woman that he's involved in. He puts his body into the woman. But he travels, his soul travels down the emotion and the excitement to a woman's beyond. And he reinforces his ego, self, from that. And what happens is, he starts to grow. Well, God made man in his image, but woman made him over in hers, with a different spirit, so that men are subject to a woman's spirit. Every time she reassures him lovingly and gives him support, something goes wrong with the man, but also it's through the woman. And because it comes through her, something's going wrong with her too. See, so that practically answers the question of the first part of my, thought that I put forth. That what does a woman want from a man? She wants a man to stop reaching toward her for love. Because as long as he reaches toward her, away from his own reality, for love, to reinforce an illusory sense of reality, dependent on the woman like a dope addict with a pusher, the woman can never get what she's looking for from the man. The man's always getting what he's looking for from the woman, but he's also not getting what he's bargained for as well. Trouble. A real mean spirit comes out. She's frustrated. And men scratch their wooden heads because they're a little bit anesthetized by this love, you see. And a woman kind of knows what's going on. She's the bartender. She's not drunk yet. She has to serve the excitement and the distraction, and she can't get drunk. She can't take the snow herself, you know what I mean? She's got to stay sober. And in her soberness, she sees what's happening to the man. His deterioration. But men must understand. And men don't want to understand because they teach their women all the wrong things, how to support their egos. And they're drawing out the female, the animal of the woman, to support the ego animal of the man, so they're deteriorating together. And all hell breaks loose, the kingdom of hell on earth, as it is in Hades, yes. Where are we going? The gentleman there, thank you.
Sometimes I almost feel with my wife that I feel almost paranoid for some reason, that if, to make up, for instance, like I would say about a person that we both know, and I would say, gee, that person does this, and she would say something like, well, maybe she has a reason for it. Almost everything it seems like I say, she has an excuse to stick up for the person.
I know what you're saying.
Many times that I says, either you just hate me or you hate men or something. We just have this problem. But I do notice, to be honest with you, I sort of do it to her.
But let me tell you the phenomena that you're seeing is that women tend to sympathize. Women make very good liberals because they have the serpentine quality that men should love the hell out of them, but instead they love the hell in them. See the difference? They embrace this and encourage the serpentine dictatorship. The dictatorship of sympathy. You'll find that women, as liberals, the liberals in politics have the same feminine quality. That everybody is lovely and there's no fault in everybody, and all that people need is more love and feeling and respect, and they'll be all right, equal rights and God knows what.
What's the formula for the solution?
The thing is, you have to look that women tend to be supportive to the wrong. Your children, they'll always support the wrong. You try to correct them. As a father, you try to correct them. That's your job. Of course, you've got to be correct. You've got to be respectable before that respect will take. Children know the difference. Like a Jimmy Carter, I would never listen to a Jimmy Carter. I'd just run. I'd fight like hell. I'd fight him rather than the Russians. See? That's what he'd do to me. But if it was a Ronald Reagan asked me to do something, I'd see that man's decent. and I see he means well, and he may not always be right, but never mind, I love him, and I love where he's coming from. Therefore, I'm going to go along with him and see where it leads, because, you can't have a lot of cooks running the show, just one at a time, and, everybody can make mistakes, but I'm willing to go along with that. And children are the same way. If they have that quality in the father, that beyond, see, and he's in control of himself, and whereby a woman also tends to see that quality, then she also stands corrected. The role of a man is to save himself from a woman, to find salvation. Save yourself is a bad word, because you can't save yourself. Whatever salvation is, that's another subject. But to be saved from the love of a woman, it's an addiction to a fallen being, like drugs are to the addict, you see. To save himself, to find that beyond, to identify with the spirit that created him. And when a woman sees that, a child sees that, then the marriage and the family is as good as saved. Because everything. But the trouble is, women tend to be very obstinate, because they have been doing this, they've been taught as children. You taught them yourself to support your selfishness. See? So you've done that yourself. So it takes a little while for this respectability to be recognized and to be felt. But you must understand that women tend to have that serpentine quality in them, and they tend to support everything that's weak and everything that's wrong, and to tend to war against whatever you're trying to do. They even turn your children against you, if they can. Unconsciously, they can't stop themselves. See, even as I'm talking to you right now, I have a spirit and a mind, and words sort of, they rise to the spirit that's coming through. You can almost feel that. A bad person or a misguided person, the Bible says, out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. Well, you can be full of baloney, full of shaving cream. And so therefore, there's always a tendency for the dark side to want to slip in and speak through you and make you do something dumb, say something dumb, silly, angry, cruel. And of course, I don't have that problem anymore, thank God. I'm speaking to you nice and clean from the heart. I don't research anything. I don't rehearse anything.
Does it go away though?
But no, you mean with a woman? But this quality is required, this impromptu-ness, the spontaneity that is of the spirit, that just simply knows what's right. And when your wife is wrong, you stand against it. You stand strong and tall in the saddle, unwavering, without rage, without patient, calm. That quality in a father that women have never known it. Never known in a father. All fathers have failed them as children in this respect. Angry, hostile, wimpy, but never standing there tall in the saddle, calm, sure of themselves, patient. The patience, the extension of their love. And the truth also part of that. So women tend, though, to respond to the other spirit. It's chaotic. Men have a mind. Men tend to have a logical, and I don't mean to sound what do you call those, chauvinistic, but I'm speaking now that men tend to be closer to reality, normally speaking, in their natural state or in their higher state, with an intuitive, very strong intuition. But women tend to be very emotional and complicated and confusing. And if you're not careful, if you overreact to a woman's love, you come down into her to accept ego support, emotional, it's called love, falling in love. You're falling away from what love is all about. And you leave behind your strength. And you become sure only because a woman loves you. And that's confusion, because this emotional or passionate love is very violent. The kind of love that women offer men is always through hating men. Because when you get married, what are you getting married for? Men don't get married because they love women. They get married to get a fix. It's sure every night. 3 times a night. And that's all they marry for. There's very little caring for the woman. They're just caring for, they got a woman that just wants to take care of their selfishness as many times as nature calls, see? So you see, if they're not careful, they'll fuse with the mind of the woman and they'll be the extension of the woman. They'll have the confusion of the woman. So that after a while they become the reflection of the woman, the reflection of a woman's confusion, and have no control over themselves. All a woman have to do is get angry and get upset, and then be loving, the good guy, bad guy routine. See, in other words, she wants her own way. All she has to do is offer him that little love, and he comes down. It's very exciting. He comes down to accept it, and then she wants her own way again. Then she becomes ornery and mean and stubborn and cruel and naggy and picky and confusion, and men react to that, and pretty soon men have the mind of women, and they become subject to women, and addicted to love and addicted to hate as a distraction from what love has done to them. See what I mean? Needing love more. And women also have the same problem, because if they can't get love from a man, at least they'll get sex. What does sex mean to a woman? Well, sex is simply the result of a man falling selfishly for a woman's acceptance. So as a result of men falling, an energy is given off to the woman. The excitement of a man failing feeds the ego of a woman, just like a drug addict gives off his money you see, men give off an energy when women feel. Women tend to become addicted to the failing of a man, and it's the only fulfillment they get. They draw something from his weakness, and it feels like she's strong when a man is weak. So women can tend to encourage a man's weakness for her own sense of false security. And when a woman becomes addicted to that, then it's very hard for a man to break free. Because the minute he starts to become strong, she feels insecure. She feels like he doesn't love her. See? So men have to go through all those experiences. Once you start to become strong and you start to be in your own center, then you will have some conflict in your home, but a conflict which will one day be resolved. There are two ways you can have a war with your wife. One, you have a fight with her that is positive, where she loses because you're strong. And she's like a naughty little child. What she really wants you is to be strong, not to let her have her own way. If she has her own way, it's too bad for both of you and the kids, because it's not what she wants. Like the kid doesn't want his own way either. He wants correction. So therefore, if you stand tall and you understand what she needs, and you don't get angry and upset and excited and that sort of thing, and you stand there, you don't fall for the sex thing, and you don't fall for the upset thing. You stand there calmly, then that light of understanding comes through you, and after a while, she sees that you're strong and silent and standing for something, and it's what she's looking for, even though there's no words for it. It's coming from your beyond. Yes, where is that question? Yes.
What about mutuality? You seem to bring nothing.
Mutuality. There's no such thing as mutuality. You mean equal? A woman is equal to the man? Is that what you're saying? There's no such thing as woman equal to man.
What are they, less?
No, they're not less. They're not equal.
Well,
see, if you're thinking in terms of ego, then you're thinking in terms of who is more.
I'm not taking it to that point. I'm looking at it as two loving people.
Right. It's the purpose of a man to give love, and to be the leader. And is the role of the woman to be the follower?
No, we're not talking about roles. We're talking about individuals.
Well, tell me what you mean.
Life.
Pardon?
A mutual. On one hand, if I were a man and I had a woman who cared and loved me, not for a fix. A man who looks for a fix is no man at all.
Correct.
Yeah, and the same case holds.
But most
for
men
a
are
woman.
like that,
Well, we're not talking about most.
Right. I agree.
All right,
we're talking about something special here.
We're talking about what's real and meaningful and worthwhile.
Yes.
We're not talking about the 2,000 ways of being misled.
Right.
Mutuality.
Well, I still don't know what you mean.
What I say, if one year I'm the man making the money, I share. If another year I'm without, she shares because she loves me.
Well, yes, I understand that. I understand. That's not a heavy question, though.
But
I understand. That goes without saying.
It does work. Love and compassion. Simple as that.
But we're not talking about love and compassion when you just talk about that. Look, I'm speaking about the male. I am speaking about roles, and I'm not speaking about who goes out and does the work and who does the sharing. You see, I'm not talking about that at this point. Maybe we'll talk about that some other point.
Roles?
I'm saying that roles. Yes, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. Good. And if a man is a real man, a woman is happy for that. and then she can be a real woman. Otherwise, they become one another. See, and they don't know who the hell's in charge.
The individual should know who the individual is.
Oh, you're talking like a liberal now.
No. And
you're talking. What you're doing now?
I agree with you.
You're bringing confusion into the conversation.
I agree when you said yes. Jimmy Carter did wound America, but it took Ronald Reagan to kill it.
Oh no! I tell you, liberal.
No, I'm not talking about. You can name call,
all right, okay.
But we can talk.
Well, we only have 2 minutes to finish this segment of the discussion. We're gonna finish it. We'll finish off.
I'll share with you.
Yeah, a little while, because we're not going to go anywhere with that one.
It's unfortunate.
Oh dear. In other words, I can't be educated. I know what you mean.
Oh no.
I'm very stubborn. But hello.
Foolish.
Yeah, this. If you want to learn more about the man-woman relationship, the proper relationship, and if you dig what I'm saying, and I think most of you do, the non-liberals amongst you appreciate what I'm saying. Then, because you still have common sense left, they still have the brain of the serpent. So, I mean that. I mean that. Don't mean to be unfriendly. Only just downright ornery. Truth is truth, and I want to step on that head every time I can. So, anyway, the Adam and Eve syndrome, and you learn all about the nature of the woman and what men must do to save her from herself. Men must be strong. But to be strong does not mean to be animal. It means to be respectable, to stand for what's right, see, and sometimes standing against the unreasonableness of a lady, because that's really what she's looking for. A man who knows how to do it, not violently, but with gentleness and firmness, like the father she's never known. And then she knows the fathers beyond, which she's never known. Both of them will know it, and both will have the mind of a man, in the Spirit of God. $10 if you want to write to me. The address is on the screen. And we're going to continue with this thought on our next segment. Thank you very much. Welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Negative Emotions. And believe me, if you're going to be watching this program for long, you better hang on to your hat. Because you're going to get so upset that you're going to need, the address at the end of the program, How to Control Your Negative Emotions. And the key to survival, mental survival, as a matter of fact, spiritual ascendancy, is the whole key, is learning to be calm, not angry, not resentful in the face of stress. There's a book called Winning by Intimidation. And in that book, it will teach all those people who are entrepreneurs to overcome opposition and win, high salaries and will your way through people, will your way to riches and fame and power by just walking on a sea of heads. And I think that's terrible that a book should ever be printed like that. I'm going to teach just the opposite, the antidote. And this principle holds true, but especially with women, men and women. Women have to be not angry with their husbands, and men must learn to be patient with their wives. Because always, when you have the spirit of patience, which cannot be provoked, you have in that patience love. Now, when you have impatience, there comes a spirit of cruelty, like a barbed dart, it's like the Greek gods of wars. Mars is lance. Couldn't find the word. It goes right into your spirit. And I know that most of you have come from a lineage where you have impatient mothers and fathers, weak fathers but bullying mothers who, by their sheer willfulness and confusing ways, have upset their fathers, the husbands, your father, out of all the common sense they were born with. So they couldn't rise to the occasion of need with this love and this strength, and their character therefore never grew. And as the result of their character not growing and the conflict they felt in themselves for growing up the way they did, like a wounded matador, they drank and smoked and drugged themselves into oblivion so they didn't have to face it. Found ladies of the night, to be supportive and give them the illusion of being a man. They lost themselves in fantasy and all the rest of it. But anyway, they weren't a man. and they weren't around. And you've all come up, all of you, with very few exceptions, with the same spirit of the female. See, and the men especially, they come back to the same kind of woman, because the woman that upset you as a child, because your father wasn't there to stop her and lead you to his beyond through your respect of his strength, you see. The kind of woman that put that into you has created in you an image of her likeness. In other words, almost like a little spirit, little alien in there, that tends to have no direction of its own, simply because the upset, the fact that you resented your mother through the failing of your father, the fact that you lost the direction because you fell by being resentful. Remember, resentment is hate, and resentment separates you from love. It separates you as a man from your beyond, from allowing that spirit of the beyond to come through that moment, to correct the woman, to be a respectable example to your children, for them to inspire respect for your beyond, because when that would happen, they would have a beyond of their own. They too became subject to the woman because of the man's failing. See, it's very important to understand this balance. And for that reason, men have no direction of their own. But their direction, whatever they are, has come through the woman, the beyond of the woman. And they go back to the beyond of the woman for a sense of strength, for a sense of being a man, for a sense of being who they are, for validation, for their ego. That's the problem. The woman finishes off what the mother began. That's the reason why that men fall in love, but they fall in love with the spirit of their mothers. See? And they're caught up in a hypnotic trance where they think this is heaven. It's the heaven, but it's really hell in disguise. See? And so I'm saying that men must be patient. They must find this inner strength and ground of being, because the only way they're going to do that is to hear what I'm saying right now. If you're angry with your wife, if you're angry, if you let a woman intimidate you, and if you fall for that and take into yourself a little bit more reassurance, a little direction, when you're angry, then you love. When then you love, you find you're enslaved. When you're enslaved, you find you're angry. But who wants to be enslaved? You're angry, you try to break fruit for it, you try to fight the woman with your anger and your resentment, but she stimulated the anger. You've fallen again to her intimidation. Yes, you become more of what you were, but you become more of a jerk. And when you find that you're more of a jerk, what does a jerk want? He wants more love to think he is not a jerk. Now he loses himself in the woman's lies. It's love, hate. They fight, they make up, they fight, they make up, they fight, they sex. And a man goes down and then finished. And then a woman is left alone on this wretched earth, all by herself, ugly and old, unloved by her children. There's no love. She's a dominating animal. The man has run away in order not to deal with, so he doesn't have to deal with this kind of woman, but he's created her. He's given his strength to it. Always in weak people. What did Gandhi say? The people get the kind of governments they deserve. So if you have politicians, they're all crooked and rotten, it's because somehow you keep electing the politicians like you do marrying the same kind of woman. You're always looking for something lower than yourself. And that's what you worship, because it validates you. You're the child of that. You're the child of corruption. The drug addict is the child of corruption. Whatever is in that, a drug addict cries out to the pusher that created him to reassure him. That's the only kind of reassurance you know, but the more assurance you get, the worse you become. That is very important. That love and hate, but hate, resentment is the key. Close your eyes, learn that meditation exercise, and stand back outside yourself. The Bible says something interesting. It says, when you're absent from the body, you're present with the Lord. But, because that means they imply that you're going to die. And then but not everybody who's absent from the body is present with the Lord. They may be somewhere else. They may be in hell, as far as you know. If there's a heaven, there's a hell too. No, what this really means, in my opinion, is that when you're objective to your body, the spirit of the true beyond is there. That is why some women are jealous of man being introspective and sitting quietly in a room and being thoughtful because they want all their attention on her. She's addicted to a man failing and her being the center of attention, the center of power, and her getting the power through her little games that she plays to upset and love and upset and love. See? And that's the reason why we're not dealing, a woman is not just a body like an animal body. She's a metaphysical representative. She has a beyond. And this beyond has to be tamed. Unless a man finds his beyond, he'll be beyond himself. See? I mean, it's just too bad for him. I'm telling you, there's such a thing as salvation. And a man must sacrifice his pleasure. For example, when a man uses a woman for his ego sexual gratification, instead of the sexuality becoming satisfied, it's like a drug addiction. Whenever failing is involved, sexuality is awakened. So whether a man hates failing, or whether he's loved, falls for that love, he comes away from his true reality, see, and his sensibility falls asleep, but he awakens as a sensual person. And so, therefore, man is never satisfied with sex. He wants more and more and more and more, and he needs more and more reassurance about his sexual nature because something wrong with the way he exists. But he doesn't want to admit that his sexuality has something to do with death and dying. That every sex act is a little piece of death, a slice of death. That's what it is. Every validation for his ego awakens sexuality. And so that when ego is satisfied through sexuality, and he travels through his sex glands into the beyond of the woman, and receives that embrace, that surrender, and immerses himself in the spirit of her beyond, he is less as the result of that experience with terrible conflicts. And how does he resolve the conflicts? More sexuality. His mind is on women continuously, and he keeps crying and crying and crying until a woman becomes sick of his crying. He becomes a little boy. See, and she becomes the mother. But it should be the other way around. It should be the other way around, where the woman is the little girl, and the father, and the husband is the father, because woman came out of man. That's why she was called woman. She came out of man, and man is, in a sense, the father. Woman is the clone of the woman, of the man. But when life is reversed through sin, and man falls from his beyond to the woman's beyond, and he is recreated in her image, then his God is her God. See? And all hell breaks loose, and he starts to become a woman. He starts to take on the image of the woman, and the spirit of the image is evil. His behavior starts to change, aberrant, cruel, violent, mean, all the opposite of what is spiritual and religious. So it's so important to understand these principles, and we read about them in books. We know about Adam and Eve. We know, but I'm telling you right now, what I'm saying to you is that by your own experience, you can see that life is reversing itself. And after all, what is evil but lived backwards? And devil lived backwards. Only man can live backwards. See, move away from the present into some other wrong kind of future, back to the future sort of thing, back to front future. That's why it's very important to understand that man is a fallen being. That's the only way you could explain the horror of human relationships, the weaknesses of the masses of the nations to dictators, the weakness, the boot-licking quality of men with their women, the tyranny of women, or the tyranny of men over women in their rebellion, animal, violent rebellion. What they cannot retrieve with grace, a respect they cannot have because grace they haven't got, they retrieve with violence. You see? So now, women, men, the role of a man is to correct a woman. But if a man is selfish, he doesn't want a woman corrected, because a correct woman wouldn't play the game. You weren't married because you were right. You were married because you were wrong. And he taught you to be wrong to support his wrong, because only a wrong person will support the wrong. He brings out the worst in you to support the worst in himself, which he thinks is the better self. As long as he's caught up in the lie, he thinks that's true. And if, as long as if the truth catches up with him, it shows him it's untrue. But what does he do? He draws the lie out of you and involves himself with you in the experience, the emotion experience. So now you see that men have to correct women. And if my wife has been very difficult in that subject because she's been very, very stubborn. And I told her, I said, the role of a man is to love his wife. But what does love mean? It isn't sexual love to give in to her charms and use her charms, but use those charms less. See, standing back from indulgence, ego indulgence and sexual pleasures in that sense, for her sake, denying himself. Didn't Christ say, lay down your life, deny yourself and pick up your cross and follow me? Man must deny himself. That's what love is. When a child has, if you can imagine a child and a mother in a situation where there's only one crust of bread, will the mother eat the crust of bread herself or give it to the child? Even though the mother has hunger, even a dog will do that for the animal, for her offspring. Human beings, true love is denial. And when you see self-indulgence, when you see the truth for what it is, how can you go on indulging yourself? When you see that your wife is becoming more of a witch, the more you love her, you must realize there's something wrong with your love. You must realize that all you're doing is gratifying yourself at her expense. Getting what you want, but forgetting what she wants. Now, it can't work. It can't happen. You've got to forget what you want so that you can have what she wants. You can't give it. For instance, if I take advantage of you, then I can't love you. But if I have an opportunity to take advantage of you and I don't, I'm loving you. Love can only come through when you're not taking advantage. But when you give up the advantage taking, then love comes through. One sees love through that. Men must see their advantage taking. They must see that their sexuality is mostly, they see, a need, a selfish need. And until we can get men beyond that point, there will be no love in the home. Women will hate their husbands because they use them. And the only satisfaction that women can have is to outuse the user. That's the end of the story. And there is no cure. Don't go to your psychiatrists and don't go to your psychologists. Forget it, because they're only going to tell you what you want to hear. There are plenty of philosophers and teachings that will tell the men what they want to hear. The truth is, the man must go to his beyond. And it's not the woman's beyond. And only when a man goes to his beyond, and a woman sees that shining star in a man, can she leave her beyond and travel with him to paradise. I forgot to ask questions. And one other thing I wanted to say quickly, you can hold it right there, is that, gentlemen, I'm going to tell you very simply, anytime you see your wife acting strange and dominant, give up sex. Simple. Just give it up. Because you can know that somehow through that she is getting strength to be stubborn. When you give up that sex and you deny yourself, you overcome her stubbornness with love. But if you keep giving into that, gratifying yourself, you're feeding her power. Yes, question.
The path back out of that, is it two separate paths? One for the man and one for the woman?
No, there's always a possibility that the woman would not want to go where the man is going, but to take the man where she is going. She's very stubborn and very prideful. There are very incorrigible people on both sides, males and females. But let's say that everything is being equal, that both men and women really want what's right. A woman would readily respond to the bright and shining star in a man. See? A woman can start the process and bring a man to it. And a very strange thing happens. She takes the lead. I mean, even our young man here who's holding up this microphone, had it happen to him. His wife took the lead and brought him around to reality. Now, all of a sudden, he's taking the lead. He woke up, and now she's trailing him. He's going ahead by leaps and bounds. And she's perfectly happy for that. She never wanted the lead in the first place. But since she had the ball in her court, that was the... But the point is, it's nothing embarrassing, is it? It's just a nice story, and I was happy to be privy to it. And But there's always the possibility that a man will leap ahead, or the woman, find this level of consciousness and brightness and goodness, and one of the two will not follow. And he or she will go off and look for some other sucker to suck on, to hang on, to draw her energy and her ego power. If that's the case, you hang in there, you be patient, don't be dismayed, you just lost what you should never had in the first place. You don't have to do the divorcing. The chances are she'll run like hell, he'll run like hell, and you'll be left with the way you should be.
See, that's the scary part of it, because I can see in my own relationship when I started changing, then I see a lot of negative reactions on the part of my spouse.
Right.
So it really makes you stop and take second notice.
It means you're going to lose. The minute you start to stand up and be the kind of person you never were, it means that you're going to take away the power of your pusher. You've taught your wife to be the pusher, and in that she's kind of semi-happy. She's unhappy, but she's happy. But what you give her, your weakness, your submission, that makes her happy, but it also makes her unhappy. And then you satisfy the unhappiness by giving into her more, trying to find out what she wants, and nothing makes her happy. Now you go the other way. You take away what's made her happy, unhappy, and she's still unhappy. See? She feels like you're holding out on her. You got some other woman or something. You're a homosexual or something. And she may start to call you, because she wants that back, but the bad part, the dark side, wants it back, but the bright side is a prisoner in the tower. You just hold on for the bright side, yes. But back there.
Yeah, I can't seem to be able to give up the hate towards that insanity that goes on in the home.
The hate.
Yeah.
Don't hate
for
back.
a woman. Yeah.
No, don't hate back.
Yeah, I can't.
I know, but you see, you've got to learn not to hate back. Have you ever played ping pong by yourself?
No.
Well, you ping and the ball doesn't come back. You ping and there's no pong. Fun? Well, the point is, in principle, love is like that. When your wife starts to act mean and cruel, and she bounces that off you, nothing comes back to strengthen her to make her next move. People are notoriously externalized, meaning, I used to watch television with my children, and I used to make the point when the bad guy comes into the saloon and Gary Cooper's sitting there drinking his milk. See? And let's just take a step back. The other guy's in the saloon drinking his whiskey, and the badder guy comes in and challenges the guy drinking the whiskey, the weak guy, to a draw, and he draws, he falls down, he's dead. Now Gary Cooper comes in with his milk, and he sits there, and the other guy tries to provoke him. And he doesn't provoke. And he does his best to kind of, nothing happens, just sits there drinking his milk. And then in his own time, see, he wins the day because he's calm and he makes his move in his own time. When the other guy's provoked, you got to be in your own time zone. And if you can be in your own time zone, I remember when I was a kid fighting a lot. I was very good at it. Boy, was I good. Judo, boxing, I could do it all. But remember this, in England during the war, Jewish people and Germans had problems. So I learned to fight. But always I learned that to have a presence, to go into this presence where it's not me anymore. And my reaction, it was without taking any thought. So it's almost like, what happened? But it happened so fast. It's almost as though a big brick or big 10-ton boulder can be falling from the sky, and I can see it coming down, and I sort of step out of the way calmly, and it smashes there. But people see me moving like greased lightning. I have my own time zone, my own frame of reference. You have to stay in that timeless time zone where you're not part of what's happening. See? It's almost like Star Trek, the Starship Enterprise. You put up a force shield, and you stay within the force shield, and nothing can come through. It's almost like a one-way mirror, in a sense, that nobody can get to you, but you can get to them. It's very frustrating. And when your wife or your adversary comes against you that way, they feel this presence. that cannot be touched. They feel that you're in the protection of something greater than them. And they recoil. They react very violently. And the harm that they want to do to you comes onto themselves. They sting themselves together. Revenge is mine, saith the Lord. I will pay back. And I tell you, if you're not angry and you're calm, the harm that people want to put into you bounces off of you and sticks into themselves. And they will do themselves in. And the only way they can stop is to realize you're right. And realize they're doing it to themselves, that you're not really hurting them at all. They're only hurting themselves. And when they realize you're not hurting them, they love you. See? That all they have to do is stop hating you and everything will be all right. I never forget, do we have time for a little story? We got a little time for a story. I remember when I first came to Los Angeles, I had a house trailer. And this house trailer full of 4 kids. And I didn't want to waste my time looking for houses and dragging this thing around. You know how difficult it is to find houses. So I went to a real estate person who was supposed to have qualified leads for me. And I paid $10 for the service. And I come to find out the first place was an empty lot. So I went back. I said, I want my money back. He says, you can't have it. I said, you know something? You're supposed to qualify these leads for me, but you're taking advantage of me. He says, well, go sue me. I said, let me tell you something, friend. I'm staying here until you give me my $10 back. He said, go fry your face. I said, now look, I'm a professional hypnotist. I always pull that on everybody. I said, I'm going to make you eat crow. I said, go ahead. I know you hate me right now, don't you? He says, yes, so what of it? I said, well, I'm going to use your hate against you. You want to see me do it? He says, yeah, go ahead. I said, go ahead and hate me. Go ahead. I said, I'll tell you that I can make you do anything I want if you hate me. I said, oh, yeah. So as a result of that challenge, he started to hate me. I said, now I'm taking control of your mind, friend. All of a sudden, he realized it was true. Because he couldn't hurt me. He couldn't hurt me, but he was now reacting to me and now reacting to my suggestions. And he started to turn gray. And he picked up the phone. He almost fainted. Help, this man's controlling my mind. But what I was saying, what the point is, I said, now look, I'm going to let you off the hook now. I said, you can keep the money, because that's not the principle. Next time a person comes in and you treat them right. And I'm going to let you off the hook on one thing, that you're going to continue to suffer this terrible fear that you've got, because you played with something you didn't understand. I said, your cure, I'll relieve you of this when you realize you were wrong. And I walked out. He was sprawled all over the counter. See, the only thing, that was the release, to realize he did something wrong and to give up the hate. I remember another time a young man came in. I had an office in an insurance company, and he always made fun of me. I was a hypnotist at the time. He said, you are just a fake. He said, you can't hypnotize anybody. I said, I'm going to hypnotize you right now, because I've had enough of you right now. I said, I tell you what, you hate me, don't you? He says, yes, I do. I said, but what's the most important thing in your life? And he says, well, I haven't taken an accounting exam. I said, you're going to fail. The more you hate me, the more you're going to fail. He said, I'll show you I can hate you and not fail. But he couldn't, because when he hated me, he couldn't take his mind off his work. He couldn't take his mind off of me. And he failed. 6 months later, he came back. There's a knock on the door. He said, take this thing off of me. He'd been to all the psychiatrists. I said, all you have to do is stop hating me. I said, what, you see, you're hurting yourself. He learned the lesson. And don't you see, that's a release. I want all of you to learn to not hate back. Let people hate you, but don't hate back. Don't be resentful. And love will shine through, and you will be the master of everything you survey. And get this book, this excuse me, there's Adam and Eve syndrome. Getting all my cues mixed up. We're going to do another program next week on the subject of, what is it? Faith. Oh yes, faith and doubt. So join you next week. Thanks for listening.